Drivers, start your engines!
Hit the pace car! What for? Because you hit every other damn thing out there, I want you to be perfect!
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. It's him, but he talks to me.
Well, I wanna be a race car driver, pretty girls eating from my hand, yeah. Wanna live a life of fun and danger, no sweaty working for the man, alright.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network and welcome to the Drafting the Circus program. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this past weekend in racing and preview next week. Joining me in the studio, I have Luis Torres and Richard Youden. Guys, how are we tonight?
Good, thank you. Very good.
Relieved, but tired.
Relieved, but tired. All right. So big weekend behind us where we had NASCAR and IndyCar sharing the stage all on the same circuit, all running the Indianapolis road course with differing results from the three different races there where we all ran the same course. The IndyCar guys were first, followed by the Xfinity guys, and then the Cup guys ran it on Sunday. Our big winners this week were Will Power, Austin Cindric, and AJ Allmendinger taking the first Cup win for Colleague Racing. So good on him, but that wasn't exactly an easy road to get there for AJ. So let's talk about the Cup race first, because that was the headliner and it was the one that was possibly the most, controversial or train wreck-ish.
I wouldn't even say those two words.
Yeah.
I call it a dumpster fire for the final hour and a half.
There you go.
Before the caution for debris in the closing stages of the final stage, everything was seamless. It's like your prototypical Cup road course race. You have Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson being the guys to be, with Chase Briscoe, Austin Dillon, and Tyler Reddick, with the latter of Reddick winning two stages through strategy. All of those three are trying to get into playoffs, and I know they had to win to assure themselves to get in. Denny Hamlin, on the other hand, all he just needs is a repeat winner, or what would turn out to be later, a non-Cup driver win to put him in the postseason by points.
Or he needed a win of his own, which he was really close to getting.
Yeah, he was right there. And then the caution for debris happened. They bunched up the field with about 7 or 6 laps to go. The curbs. Let's talk about the infamous Turn 6 curbs that was popularized by Spencer Pigot and Chris Wright the day before the Cup race. Because people tend to forget, we're talking about Marcus Ericsson with Nashville, but Spencer Pigot was the first one that flew off in those curves in Turn 6. People forget about that these days. But that curve was a problem to where apparently Anthony Alfredo on the opening lap, that huge splitter underneath, got stuck in the curves, and then several drivers were running over it during restarts in particular, then caused some parts to explode, debris everywhere, and even stuck that they had to take it off to the moment I thought they're probably going to red flag this because they had to fix the curves, but no, they made it through okay. Then on the final restart, well, not the final restart, the third to last restart.
The first of many.
Yeah, the third to last restart, if memory serves correctly. You had Mark Truex Jr., you had somebody hit the curves. I can't remember who it was exactly. Debris exploded everywhere, and then Mark Truex Jr. went off and slightly made contact towards the tire barriers. Truex was able to get it going. It was clear as day in the footage. There was debris everywhere. You think, okay, Truex binned it. Okay, maybe if you get it around, we'll get back going, but there's debris everywhere. Throw out a yellow. No, they didn't throw a yellow. Further behind, I didn't find out until this very morning that Josh Bilicki got turned by Eric Almirola in the background, spinning all over the place. That may be aggravating more racing. It's like, who in the world was that car that spun before all the madness, between the madness? It turns out Josh Bilicki was the one because he got turned. He would be involved in another incident later on, but no, the race got going. It's going to be a fun battle between Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Denny Hamlin and those guys. Hamlin and Briscoe were putting on an amazing show. Both of them trying to get to the playoffs. For Briscoe, is Indianapolis. It means everything to him. For Hamlin, recall back last year's Brickyard 400, he was a few laps away from winning it until a cut tire where he violently hit the oval turn one wall. So both of them had a lot at stake. Both of them want to win Indy so badly, albeit it's the road course, but Indy is Indy in the eyes of many people, depending who you ask. As far as whether it's road course or oval, it doesn't matter. Indy is Indy. Then the mayhem you would expect on a wetter day. You have Kyle Busch and William Byron hitting the curb. They spun. Apparently there's oil and debris everywhere. Then Joey Logano slammed the tire barriers very hard, and I knew right there, like, yep, they're going to red. They had to stop the race because the barrier is damaged, the guardrail may have taken a hit, and then deluge happened without the literal deluge. You had, who do you had? Ryan Preece, Cole Custer. No, Cole Custer was after that one. You had Ryan Preece involved. You had like 7 or 8 other cars spinning and sliding into the barriers, into the grass. It was just a complete mess. So I was thinking, okay, they're going to red flag the race immediately. No! They took them 5 minutes to literally stop the race. They literally ran a full lap. Because the way NASCAR throw red flags these days, if it's obvious, they stop the race. Mostly for Logano. And then I noticed that the curb was completely destroyed. It's like, yeah, they got to stop the race immediately. No, they took them 5 minutes to stop the race. Fortunately for Logano, he was okay, but the curbs needed work. Well, needed work because they ultimately got rid of it. You even had Doug Bowles, the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, come out and help. It's like, this is not what NASCAR needs, period. This is...
No, it's, for NASCAR both and to a certain extent, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the both of those, to some casual observer, it's like, what are we watching? Amateur hour here? Every
venue that we had new has had disastrous proportions except for Nashville. The only problem with Nashville is just the traffic and car reliability. Where you hit something wrong, you're going to slam the wall. But that's what it was back then. You get that back in the day, where reliability in some parts of the track being so treacherous that it caused some parts to break. But Coda with the disaster of the deluge. Bristol Dirt being unorganized and disastrous. I still stand that it was completely unorganized how they handled that ordeal. What other the Daytona road course where they threw the yellow for whatever reason, just because they were expecting it to rain, and ultimately it never did rain enough. They've been having NASCAR this season has had so many blunders beyond epic proportions that it's absolutely baffling in my book. Road America, they did fine. They had really no problems with Road America. But every other venue, it seems they have growing pains. This one had a growing pain and a half and then some. It's like adds frustrations. You have Daniel Suarez, you have Austin Dillon out there being not happy, especially Suarez was very vocal on Twitter about it. And I don't blame them. It's like, they should have thrown the yellow when all the debris exploded all over in turn 6 and when Truex hit the barrier.
It's kind of, it's kind of hilarious if you think about it, because NASCAR has this.
Loudon too.
Yeah, well, NASCAR has this reputation of throwing a yellow for a hot dog wrapper on an oval course if the leader gets too far ahead. But yet we have a bunch of debris on a road course and we don't throw the yellow. You know what I mean? It's kind of the dichotomy there is just amazing. And I don't know what has changed. You know what I mean? Because, NASCAR is always good to throw an artificial yellow. Stage racing is planned artificial yellows.
It makes IndyCar 2011 officiating look like prime FIA. Period.
Louise, you are riled up, my man.
I even told some folks this is probably the most appalling Cup race I've seen in years, and I'm not a guy. If I see people upset, it's like, okay, I understand, but this one I cannot back them. In period, all of this could have been avoided. All of it if they waved the yellow a lap earlier, it could have been avoided. I don't know why they were waiting, knowing the curves was going to be a problem. When you have debris. That's what you got. You got what you got.
Yeah.
Go got a bunch of good
Anyway,
cars.
at the end of the day, the way the race worked out, it kind of gives a lot of credence to the argument that why are we taking the Cup cars off the oval when we've been running that for 27 years? And there were, some drivers who said they've taken the crown jewel away, this sort of thing. NASCAR wanted to spice up the show due to dwindling attendance, changing the dates here and there, having more support races. Nothing has really kind of helped the dwindling attendance, but I want to say this attempt to maybe help the dwindling attendance is not going to help in the future unless you're trying to draw the fans that just come for the wrecks because they were there.
Yeah, you might as well put it in during the month of May for all we know, because there's going to be a strong crowd, mostly all because of the snake pit. Exactly.
Now, Richard, you've been quiet over there while Louise has been ranting. So let me get some of your thoughts on this, particularly, with the way the Cup cars performed over those curbs, which are, at the end of the day, it's something that the Cup cars are not exactly really used to, because we've, traditionally had Sonoma and Watkins Glen as our road course races, where we don't quite have those curbings and turtles and those sort of things there. Now we have them at the Charlotte Roval and on the road course, but we've seen a lot of curb hopping. But I mean, was this just a failed experiment to begin with, or what could we have done differently?
I don't think it's a failed experiment. I think if you look at it from a purely racing standpoint, I thought the racing was pretty good in places. Before it all got a little bit silly and a little bit, with the curbing coming up there. I think fundamentally, as I say, I quite enjoyed the bits of the race. I must admit, I didn't see all the race, but the bits that I did see, fundamentally, it was pretty good racing. And, the guys, they're getting better at it. I know there was strategy, but do you ever imagine you'd see somebody like Austin Dillon competing for stage wins on a road course? It's certainly getting better. It is certainly getting better. I think there is going to be, teething problems, for want of a better word, as there are with any track you go to, especially when you're trying to put basically a square peg in a round hole. These current generation Cup cars are not designed as extensively for road racing as other, like an IndyCar, for example, or an endurance car, Le Mans car, or an ALMS car, whatever it may be. So you are going to take a while to fully understand how these cars work on these circuits. You're not building a track that is bespoke, designed for Cup racing. You're building a track, or you're taking Cup racing to a track that already exists. And it is going to take some time to get used to. That little chicane on the back there is just, I've never liked it, even in Cup racing. I know the old track they didn't used to like, where it sort of double backed on itself, and then you had this tight right-hander onto the back stretch, and maybe that little chicane does improve overtaking coming off the back straight there. But that chicane was always a bit to me. I mean, I'd just get rid of it and just extend the length of the back straight. I mean, I don't know why they try and put it in there, because this is exactly what's going to happen, is you bounce cars over those curbs. But yeah, it unfortunately did look a bit amateurish and a bit amateur hour and a little bit, or amateur 2 hours as it turned out to be. And yeah, they could probably help themselves a little bit, but I'm sure they go back next year. That circuit will be, a lot more suitable to Cup racing. I don't know if any of the Cup cars actually tested there pre-event.
I didn't see anything from
No.
anything NASCAR at Indy. It's like very rare, close to none, especially with the test rules that they have.
So yeah, you wonder if maybe they could have, given them an extra day, a test day up there, or at least sent some of the guys up there to give a little bit of feedback.
Yeah,
but on the whole,
and again, we're still going into races with no practice and qualifying.
Yeah,
There was qualifying in the Cup race, wasn't there?
yeah, practice
Yeah.
and qualifying for
Yeah, I think because
Saturday
it was a
and
new.
Sunday.
Because I think the new tracks they have had, haven't they?
I think
But-
the only one left, if memory serves correctly, is Phoenix. It's qualifying the whole thing, the whole package. I think it's just only Phoenix left, if I recall, because it's the championship race.
Okay. Yeah. But it's just a little bit. Yeah, I think next year they'll be back up and running, and I think it'll be in a better position. But
Well, do you feel like the next car, which honestly resembles an IMSA car more than it does resemble
it does, yeah,
traditional stock car? You think this is going to be better suited for the amount of road courses that NASCAR has chosen to add to the schedule?
I think it could be from a suspension standpoint. They're getting rid of like the truck arm suspension. They're going to individual conventional suspension that you'd see on almost like a single seater car. So I think that is going to be more compliant to road racing. And also, I think what's going to help here is that this year has been a bit of these last 2 years have been a bit of a sort of a sort of an anomaly for NASCAR, because the teams have known that this standard chassis is coming for originally 2021, now 2022. So there's been no development of road cars, or road course cars, I doubt, by any of the teams, really. Some of these road course cars are like 5 or 6 years old, the actual chassis, because back in the day they were used twice a year, and a lot of the teams were like, yeah, well, our guys are crap at road courses, so we'll save some money and not build a new car. Every now and again they did come along and they did build a new chassis, but that was mainly for the guys that were actually competing for road course wins. So you're in this sort of limbo state here for a couple of years where, they're getting more road courses, but they're not developing the cars. So maybe for next year. Now, when we look at this, what this concept is of a common chassis, it's just basically the core component of the car. The teams can still develop their own front clip and rear clip, which is basically suspension geometry and suspension mounting. So there's still a lot of independence there that the teams can do. It's just going to be, because the main greenhouse of the car, as they call it, is pretty standard anyway. So it's just they're all going to come from the same manufacturer. But the actual suspension geometry, the teams will be able to work on themselves. So I'm pretty certain you'll start to see a lot more development of the road course setup going forward with the new generation of car, especially when they get into 6-7 road courses a year.
Yeah, it was a huge jump in the schedule. They went from having 2 road courses a year for years to they added the Roval, that was 3, and through the Daytona road course in, that was 4. And now we've got 7 this year.
Yeah.
So, but to your point, why develop this car? Because you're going to shelve it.
Exactly.
Shelve it at the end of the season. So let's talk about our race winner for a moment, okay? Because for the Colleague race team, this is their first Cup win. This is absolutely huge for them, mind you. That they inherited the win when Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin had their issues, but AJ Allmendinger has, he was there all day. Yeah. He's AJ Allmendinger's a ringer on road courses, Dinger the ringer, right? And here's a guy who just had an interesting career. I mean, here's a guy who started out in single seaters, won some IndyCar races back during the kart season, moved to NASCAR, had a little forced vacation from NASCAR after some, failed drug test kind of thing. And he's just been trying to get his career on track here. He wins the occasional road races here and there. But at the end of the day, I mean, I've met AJ a couple of times, and I think he's a fantastic guy. And I'm really, really happy that he grabbed this win, which is on one of the, most prestigious tracks in the country, in the world, really. Yeah, despite being on the road course. So really good for him, really good for that team.
Oh, without a doubt. And, we sort of talked about this on the show in the past. You look at what Colleague are doing. and they're probably to my limited sort of exposure to NASCAR, sort of going back 6 or 7 years really. One of the only teams that to my mind is actually, I don't want to use this, take this the wrong way, doing it properly. They're going out, they started in Xfinity, they've gone from, just rocking up and racing Xfinity races, learning. Then they started to compete and, get wins in Xfinity and getting in the playoffs and getting the championship battles and the like. And then, then you look at the starting to, move into the Cup Series. And again, they're not going out there, shooting, overplaying their hand like some of the new teams may be from a publicity standpoint. They're just doing it the right way. And you know what? They're actually achieving things. They're actually setting themselves a target and they're doing it. And I know the team manager, Chris Rice, I've done some stuff with him in the past, and he's the most enthusiastic and energetic person you've ever meet. I mean, it really is infectious if you spend any time around him. But he's got a core group of people there that are really starting to gel. And, again, you look at it, they're an alliance of RCR, and, pretty much every time they've run a cup race, I think they've really sort of put it to them and shown them what they're capable of doing. And, yeah, huge amount of credit to them, going about it, as I say, the right way.
Yeah, I think Allmendinger has finished in the top 10 in almost all of them. Even when Casgralla ran to 500, they were serviceable as well. So they've had a good run so far in their Cup 10 years. They've had some good performance, whether it's Dinger, Casgralla, or Justin Haley. So it's good to see them winning that way. I know they were in a deep hole earlier in the race that kept Allmendinger out of contention for a good while, but the fact that he was able to get that, the fact that he suddenly goes from, he's going to have an okay finish to all of a sudden, boom, he wins the race. Yeah. Similar in some aspects to what happened with Kevin Harvick in Montreal. Just wins it out of nowhere after Hamlin and Briscoe got tangled, where in Montreal 07 it was Robbie Gordon and Marcus Ambrose. But
yeah, I mean, you've got a job to do, and we all know in cup racing, they the drivers get their elbows out and they make things happen. And sort of talking about that, if we just want to drop back onto that that incident there with a couple of laps to go on the restart. I mean,
real quick though, to get closer to Allmendinger.
Oh, yeah,
I think him winning in Indy is a huge deal. I think it's as close we're going to see him run Indy, because if I recall, wasn't Allmendinger one of the few that decided he's no longer going to try oval IndyCar racing following, I forget, I think it was Justin Wilson's passing more than Weldon, or both. I think it was a mixture of both, that he's decided he's not going to run oval racing on IndyCar until again or anytime soon. But it's good to see him win in Indianapolis, because the one time he had that opportunity, he did all right.
Oh, I mean,
yeah. Last time he ran the 500, I think he
it was for Penske.
He led, it was during his little forced vacation. Yeah, he led some laps. He led about 23, 25 laps. Had a pretty good run. I think he finished 7th on that day. But yeah, I mean, good for him. The interesting thing about Allmendinger, who one of his best friends is Michael Shank. For whatever reason, those two guys have like a really good bond. Like they're almost brothers. So they AJ and Michael Shank kind of got together up in Ohio after the after the Cup weekend, hanging out at the little lakeside bar, and they were showing off pictures of Michael with his Indy 500 ring and Allmendinger with his Verizon 200 ring. It's pretty neat, you know what I mean? Couple guys, just great friends hanging out. So good stuff.
I'm sure both rings got 5G services in there.
All right,
back to Hamlin and Briscoe. Sorry, Richard.
Hamlin and Briscoe. Then we must talk about the IndyCar race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Hamlin and Briscoe, because Hamlin was not too happy.
No, quite rightly. quite rightly, that was absolutely disgraceful to my mind. That is what's wrong with NASCAR, what Briscoe did. They think that that's close racing. No, it's not. That is bullying. And that is wrong. You know, everybody loves hard racing and banging doors. Yeah, that's fine. I get that. That's how it should be. But when you have a guy, and I don't care what he says, intentionally take out a competitor, intentionally, there was no sort of like, oh, well, you know, I mean, it wasn't like the Hamilton and Vettel thing from Silverstone where, you know, oh, it's a 50-50 thing. This was blatantly Briscoe punting off an opposition. And
it was old Dale Earnhardt Senior tactics.
But that's the thing. That isn't racing.
No, it's not.
I don't care what anybody says. I don't, you know, if people turn around and say, oh, we want to go back to the old days of racing, forget it. No, this is not racing. This is, you know, this whole intimidating thing. Sorry, been gone. We're in a different world now. You people go to see racing, not that sort of disgraceful driving. And I mean, I'm shocked that he hasn't been penalized or at least banned for races. You look at what happened with I think it was it Hamlin? No, it was Logano and Kenseth, wasn't it? A couple of years ago when Kenseth they got a 2-race suspension. I'm sorry, this is as bad. This, you know, we need to stop this because
that's not very sporting.
It is totally unacceptable, and there is zero defense for that. Zero defense whatsoever. It just, when I watched that, it just, I mean, I basically watched, you know, I said I didn't see all the race, but I saw the highlights. You know, if you sat there through the whole race and watched it, and that happens on the penultimate lap, it's, you know, these guys show zero respect for other people. Absolute zero respect for their competitors and the teams and the engineers and everybody involved in the sport when they do stuff like that. It's, there's no place for it in the sport. And I must say, I'm amazed that he hasn't been given a suspension for that because it was totally unacceptable.
I was more angry at the fact that here's to say, when he cut in the corner, I was thinking at the time as I was watching it, because I didn't see the full gist of the replay enough because I was seeing it as it unfolded. It looked like Briscoe cut it. I was thinking, okay, maybe he has to give this position back to Hamlin, as you would. He gave the position Hamlin back, clear. Then when they penalized him, I was baffled because the mindset, because I think it's probably because I watched so much open wheel racing over the years that, okay, the same thing applies for NASCAR. If you give the position back, no problem. Like with George Russell with the pit lane thing, he gave all of them back, no problem. Yeah. Briscoe gave the position back to Hamlin. No, they're going to penalize him. But apparently there was a rule that drivers were told, no, under any circumstances, if you cut the corner, even if you give the positions back, you're going to get penalized no matter what, which I rated me more than anything else to what happened between those two. Because, but
again, that's the thing. These guys know that. You know, you almost imagine that they sit in these drivers' meetings and they don't care. They don't listen to what's going on. And it just, because they think that, you know, I'm not, you know,
they need a Rusty Wallace to just stand up and get him a talk in front of everybody. Just to get, like, if it were here, if here's the reference, 1994 Daytona 500. When they lost Neil Bonnet and Ronnie Orr, and he had all the series of accidents, even the stuff off track, you gotta give him a shot in the arm to kind of realize, look, face the music. If we keep doing this, it's gonna make the sport look even bad, and just kind of use their heads. Twitter can only go so far. You need somebody to say it publicly.
But the Twitter isn't the platform for this.
Exactly.
Debate. The problem is, and I may be wrong in saying this, but I firmly believe that within the generation of NASCAR drivers that we have, there is a huge amount of arrogance within that group of drivers on two levels. One, in terms of competition, and they don't respect their rivals. They don't respect the integrity of the sport. And on the second level, they don't respect the concept of safety. They don't respect the concept of what can possibly go wrong now, the move that Briscoe made on Hamlin falls into the former category rather than the latter. It was a low speed road course wreck. Hamlin, the worst he was going to do was spin out, which he did. He's not going to hit the wall. But you look at some of the moves you see at super speedways, for example. Now you go back to when Austin Dillon won the 500 a few years ago. He deliberately wrecks. Was it Bubba Wallace?
Eric Almirola.
Almirola, sorry. Deliberately wrecked him. Now that is at 180 miles an hour. Who knows what's going to happen? There is no way that Dillon, when he made that move, knows that he's not going to create an issue.
Yeah, look at this year's 500 alone. Look, when a turnaround go bad, you could get collected.
Yeah, they have this real issue, and you see it in their interviews, and you see it in the way they talk. It is this, to my mind, it's a huge arrogance within some of these younger drivers right now. They've never, and it's horrible to say, and I hate to say this, they've never seen a driver killed at the track. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what that gut-wrenching sensation is like. And they just go there, and it's just blur. We can do whatever we want, and they can't. They really cannot do that. And
it's just only Kurt Busch that has out of the main core drivers.
Yeah, but
to your point.
Yeah, but it's that concept of what they're involved with, and I really worry that they play up to this manufactured, agenda, this whole, we want to be like the 80s when, a guy would drive with a broken arm and smoke cigarettes while he's driving. Sorry, that's been and gone. We don't live in that generation anymore. If you want to live in that generation, there's plenty of YouTube videos to watch. Live here and now, in the real world, in the real, where people don't want to watch that. They want to watch good, hard, close racing, not the disgraceful driving that Briscoe showed at the weekend. I mean, and that's a really sad thing because he drove a great race apart from that. He was really, really good. For somebody that struggled a little bit this year, I was really impressed with him. And then he goes and pulls that crap. I'm sorry. I'm shocked that he hasn't been given a serious suspension. It's incredibly disappointing. It shows that NASCAR just don't have the balls to do it.
Yeah, it is an absolution, and that's when you brought up the 2018 Daytona 500. It's the core reason why I wrote this piece many years ago when I first started writing for Motorsports Tribune about how it's a generational thing, and also how it's a generational thing because you used to have gentleman drivers that knew better. You have your moments. They'll get frustrated and all that, and when it's quote unquote necessary, they'll take action. But they were not in violent, aggressive proportions that we've seen in the past decade now.
But this
was just super speedway racing. That we could put that as overall. I could re-release that article in 2018, and you could apply it to anything today.
Exactly. But you take, and I'm going to, obviously with my background, I'm going to sort of jump this across to Formula One. You look at the Formula One. You look at two of the arguably the greatest drivers have ever been. They both had questionable reputations at the time. Senna and Schumacher. Both of them made moves that were questionable. You look at some of Senna's, where he took out Prost at Suzuka, or Schumacher when he took out Hill and then tried to take out
Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. but you look at this, and they're remembered for those things in a negative light. It's like a flawed genius, if you like, isn't it? You look at these guys and you say, well, yeah, for pace and performance and results, they were the best. Now, and I may upset a few people here, but Dale Earnhardt was the biggest bully in a race car there's ever been. He would turn people and wreck people in a heartbeat.
Yeah, ask Terry Lamonte about that.
But he's idolized.
Darrell Waltrip.
Waltrip, yeah.
But he's idolized as this, everybody wants to be like him. Well, no. Yeah, the guy was a fantastic driver and a generational talent. There is zero doubt about that. But you also have to have a certain something about the way you present yourself and the way you carry yourself in these situations. And unfortunately, because of that idolization, that's all NASCAR's been doing. Basically, again, and not being disrespectful, the last 20 years, what have NASCAR been trying to do? Find a new Dale Earnhardt. That's all they've been trying to do. They tried to have it, they clung on to his son for 15 years and it never worked. So they're trying to do the same thing now and create this, an intimidator 2.0. Well, you're never going to get it, and you shouldn't get it. You shouldn't encourage that. You should appreciate racing for what it is. And it's, if you want to go and see, that sort of driving,
There's Bowman Gray.
Go to Bowman Gray or Demolition Derby.
Yeah, go to Demolition Derby. I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right, Richard.
Sorry. Carry on, guys. Yeah, there you go.
All right. So yeah, you and Louise are both pretty riled up tonight.
Yeah,
man.
for different reasons.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
as Ryan Newman would say, it's easier to tear up when he said it up front in the media bullpen after the Busch Clash of 2020. It's fun to tear up $100 bills, isn't it? Somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
And then a week later he ends up in the hospital for a mixture of blocking Blaney for the win, but that was not intentional wrecking at all. But
no, that was. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. That was hard racing.
Yeah, that was hard racing,
and that's fine. But again, I go back to 2018. Dylan, I don't care what anybody says, deliberately wrecked Almirola there.
I still stand by it.
All right, okay. With that statement being said, okay, let's go ahead and make our picks for Michigan. And let's move on and talk about the IndyCar race and then the Xfinity race. Okay, so Michigan coming up. Louise, who do you like?
Larson, since we didn't get a Fontana indicator, but I still think it's Larson's race to lose.
All right, and Richard?
Yeah, geez. I mean, I think
he's hard to go against Larson every week.
It is, isn't it? But let's go against him. Let's pick somebody who had a pretty rough weekend at Indy. Let's go with Keselowski.
I'll go with another guy who had a pretty rough weekend at Indianapolis, and that's going to be Denny Hamlin, because this guy really needs to legitimize his regular season title if he, in fact, wins it over Larson. So with the win. So, all right. So IndyCar race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. They were the opening act, shall we say. Had the race at about around lunchtime on Saturday, which really didn't help them in the ratings game. After
it didn't help me either because I was asleep. I had because of my overnight and also the driving exam was towards the absolute very end of the IndyCar race. So
yeah. So you're out there in the West Coast, but I mean, when you're trying to,
I didn't mind the time. It's just a matter if it was on a Saturday because I getting off from work and also the driver's exam.
Yeah. So let's talk about the race. So we've got Will Power, who is definitely in need of some good mojo lately. And here's a guy who's, he's way up high on the all-time win list. He's second to Mario in polls. Just really having a bit of a struggle lately. But this is one of his favorite courses. This race course favors him. The win on Saturday was his fifth win on the road course, and he pulled it off in wonderful fashion. Nice, clean driving. I mean, compared to what we saw in Nashville at a wheel where he was accused of taking out his own teammates, albeit maybe not intentionally. The Nashville race was, that's a memory now, but it was the Indianapolis race was so much nicer and cleaner compared to what we saw in Nashville. But but I mean, great win for Will, followed to the podium by Romain Grosjean, who's second step at the podium. Colton Herta, who again licking his wounds after hitting the wall late in the race on Nashville after dominating. So, I mean, three pretty happy guys up there on the podium, right, Luis?
Oh, for sure. With Power, especially after what happened in Nashville, where he was kind of like the black sheep or the martyr of the whole thing because of the traffic jam at turn 10 with the first red flag. It was a huge win. It equals him with Michael Schumacher with most wins on the Grand Prix circuit. He's already surpassed Jeff Gordon for most wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, road course or oval combined. So he's got that road course.
And he passes Al Unser Sr. on the all-time win list.
Yep, that too. And people forget, I was looking at the all-time win sheet. It's like Dixon and Power are not awfully far apart. They're like 9 to 10 wins apart. So
this was number 40.
So it would be 11.
Will, and I think Dixon's at 51.
Yeah. They're awfully not that far apart considering Power came into the sport about 5 or 6 years after Dixon. So the thing is, it's just the luck has not been Power's foray in his entire career. Yeah, he has an Indy 500. Yes, he has a championship, but luck has just been the burden of all burdens for Power, and such all of his career.
Yeah.
No different.
Power should have about 3 championships if you look at some of those finales over the years. Where he crashed at Sonoma that one year that handed the thing to Ryan Hunter Ray.
Yeah, there's also 2011.
Vegas. They just called off the race where he wasn't able to kind of close the deal on a championship that handed another one to Dario.
Yeah, he would have been out if they resumed that he'd been out anyway. So it was Franchitti had already locked it up at that point, no matter what, no matter how you see it.
Well, yeah, this is true. Yeah, but have that, again.
Sure.
So
we'll never know about that, but yeah, Power had a really, really good showing, but he did have good old James Hinchcliffe as a burden. Well, a burden for Penske that weekend because when Newgarden wasn't happy with James, it qualified that it hurt his chance of making it to the Fast 12. And then Power, at one moment, looks like it was going to hurt him. And then during the final pit stop, I think it was, Hinchcliffe actually exited ahead of Power. So it gave Colton Herta some lease of life. You're thinking, probably not the case, but you think maybe a little tactics going on, then maybe it'll help Herta catch Power. But then a late race full course caution happened for Alex Palou, who I was saying in the back of my mind thinking, Dixon was having an awful race. Palou having a good one. Pato is not ahead enough. And I was thinking to my mind, well, looks like Palou is going to probably win the championship at the end of Laguna or just by showing up at Long Beach the way this thing is going. You just can't stop Palou. 3 laps later, Palou's engine blew up. And the championship, for a moment, is more open than it ever was. So,
especially when you factor in that Palou is now going to have to take a 3rd engine penalty of the year, which is a 6. Well, it's going to be a 9 spots at Gateway because ovals is 9 spots. Now, the IndyCar engine rule has drawn some conversation and some controversy after Palou and Newgarden both got penalties. My understanding is after getting all the data is that Palou actually lost an engine in preseason testing. So he literally went into the season with 3 engines rather than 4, which if you think about it, why should the preseason testing engine malfunction count against your allotment of engines? But if you look back a couple of years, if you recall, back in 2012 or so, the penalty for bolting in that extra engine over the limit was 10 grid penalties, or 10 grid spots rather.
At least it was simple compared to Formula One, where you have those obscure numbers back.
Yeah,
in the day.
yeah. So, but in 2018, they dropped the grid penalties and they just made it so that when you put engine number 5 in the car, you would gain no more manufacturer points. So the penalty was directed toward the manufacturer and not the driver or the team. Now, that being said, in 2019, Joseph Newgarden happily used 6 engines to win the title. And in 2018, the top 8 finishers in the championship were on engine 5 or 6 because they figure, okay, well, there's no more grid penalty, so we'll just go ahead and do this. And that is what directly caused the going back to the grid penalty. Now, that being said, all of this isn't Palou's fault, right? So if you mileage out your engines, you're fine. If you mileaged out engines 1 through 4 and put in number 5, no penalty. But when you have these engine failures, that's really not on the team because the team can't really work on the engine. But if you pull your engines early to make sure you have a fresh engine for here or there, so it's kind of a fine line. But I think Palou has been a little unfairly punished because he lost the engine in the preseason. So he went into the season with 3. Now he's on his 3rd grid penalty of the year because he's essentially going to be on engine number 7.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see how qualifying is. That seems like qualifying is everything now. It always has been, but now with these grid penalties, you're gonna have for Palou, you're gonna have to bank on probably getting front rows every single race to minimize the damages, which is not easy, especially on an oval. That I call it the short track kit oval package. It's not the slim wings and all of that. You see it only at Indy and Texas. This is the first time we're seeing it in the shorter pack, the shorter kit, with the big wings and all of that. The only time this season because there's no Iowa this year. Next year, highly likely we'll see Iowa again, so it'll be more balanced out.
Don't jump ahead in the program.
I know. Sorry about that. We're talking about oval. We're talking about qualifying on ovals here, but oval racing. Yeah, last one of the years, but we'll see how Palou does. He is because when I think of Palou, it seems like road or street courses stand out more. Was probably because that's just what we run now, more than anything else. But you gotta think this is gonna hurt Palou. It's gonna add more work to it, but it may make, if he were to win the championship, make it more impressive that he was able to get to showcase this car is really good no matter where you put him in the starting field. But we'll see this coming weekend because you obviously have Dixon who won last year. You can't count out Team Penske. And you certainly cannot count out Pato O'Ward, who's probably could have had a great chance of sweeping both races a year ago. Difference is we're running in the night compared to the early afternoons. So that's going to be an interesting factoid, along with the fact that Romain Grosjean, speaking of him getting a podium and recreating the meme where the third place guy celebrates like nobody else's business compared to first, second place. It's like, okay, we finished first, second, right? Third, having the time of his life. He's going to run the oval, and he's got a tight rookie of the year battle with Scott McLaughlin in spite of missing 2 races. And McLaughlin has not had this. He started up pretty noble, but all of a sudden he's just been relatively MIA, whereas Grosjean has been able to shine best. And a Dale Coyne car compared to McLaughlin's Penske. But yeah, 24. Anyways, to continue on, 24 cars will be on the grid. It's the last race for Ed Carpenter and Tony Kanaan for the season. We'll be curious to see how Kanaan does in the 48. And also, you have Takuma Sato, who won the last night race at Gateway in 2019, and also keep an eye on that weather because the weather is kind of muddy right now with storms and all of that. So we'll see how that'll impact the race or the weekend as well. Because not only you have IndyCars at Gateway, you also have the Camping World Truck Series who will start their postseason on Friday. But it's going to be busy Saturday. Yeah, very busy Saturday as well. Where if you have a problem qualifying, you might be in big trouble, as you saw with Takuma Sato last year at Texas.
Last year at Texas, yeah, I had to miss the race because they couldn't get the car repaired in time. So yeah, we've got a bit of a smaller field starting here at Gateway, but Gateway, at the end of the day, right? They put on a nice event. And Louise, you were telling me they are probably in line for a Cup date next year.
Quote unquote, don't quote me on that yet. There's a couple tracks that may be on the calendar that are going to be new for the Cup Series. What races will be dropped in favor of such new tracks? No clue. But one is certain it's going to happen. We'll see by next week. We'll finally know which venue it is. Not for NASCAR, but for IndyCar, based on some new partnerships that kind of will save a circuit that I kind of half alluded to while discussing about oval qualifying.
Exactly. Yeah, it is expected that there's an announcement Thursday at 11:30 a.m., which will be, by the time you listen to the show, that announcement will have come and gone. But it is expected that Iowa Speedway will be announced for the IndyCar Series with Hy-Vee as the event sponsor and the Ray Hall Group as the promoter. So that'll be good to see. I mean, IndyCar puts on a great show at Iowa. It's one of the few bull rings that they run at. We had a shot at going back to Richmond, and that disappeared.
It still saddens me more than anything else that we never got Richmond going. And this one is not more of a dwindling attendance. No, it's just more of what's going on in the past year and a half with the pandemic that curb stomp Iowa out of the calendar. But fortunately, it looks like it's going to be back, which is good. You want to have more ovals, but the question will remain is Texas and if there's any other oval of interest.
There's a few out there I can think of where they could probably draw a crowd. Kentucky Speedway comes to mind as one of them. But as far as I know, because I kind of live right here in the I've spoken with the track president up there in Kentucky a couple times. They would love to have the IndyCars back, but IndyCar has not reached out to them in any way, shape, or form. I think that IndyCar is still reeling from the Dan Weldon loss, and they really are not thrilled with adding 1.5 mile cookie cutter ovals to the track. But, at the same time, I thought Kentucky put on pretty good show. The market being right there between the Kentucky Speedway is right south of Cincinnati. It's a couple hours from Louisville, and it's only about 90 minutes from Indianapolis. And that's the core market for IndyCar racing. So maybe they can make that happen. But, instead we're looking at Iowa, which is, again, a very interesting race. They've had some good crowds. They've tried a couple of different things at Iowa over the year, including being a night race, including they had, if you recall, a couple of years ago, they did the heat race qualifying rather than standard single car oval qualifying. So yeah. So Iowa coming back is something that's going to make a lot of fans in that heartland area pretty happy. And I hope that they come to the race in droves and make it a success like they have at Gateway.
Yeah, it's I hope it stands out a lot more. As far as Kentucky, I can understand the Weldon bit, but it's the only difference is that the banking is much more what you call friendly compared to a Vegas or a Texas and all that. But Texas is more of a PJ1 ordeal that kind of ruined the style of Texas racing down there, if anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if NASCAR doesn't want to come back to Kentucky and they wanted to pick up the IndyCar Series, keep that PJ1 off the track, I think they would have a pretty good show because you've got right now, a beautiful facility sitting empty. It's being used right now to house 4 trucks that are awaiting microchips that are behind that production to be sold. And evidently they're making about $1 million a month by allowing Ford Motor Company to use that as a parking lot, essentially. But, that's neither here nor there. So, but we only have a few minutes left. So, and I would be remiss if we didn't mention the in-between race at the Brickyard, which was the Xfinity guys, and Austin Cindric taking a great win there.
Yeah, he held off AJ Allmendinger, which Allmendinger did alluded to in his victory speech and all of that. He was so frustrated because he was that close to probably being in the mix. But Cindric, 5th win of the year, First one, now at another road course win for Cindric. Now this time at Indianapolis. Speaking of Indianapolis, I got to bring up the old quote: "One step closer to the 500." And I'm
One step
thinking,
closer to the 500. Yep, Austin Cindric going to get there one day.
one step closer, and it just is. Well, I mean, it could happen. It just gave it a couple years, but thinking back home again in Indiana afterwards, it's like some people were wondering what was he saying. It's like, come on, man, it's back home again. How do you not know that record? But
I'll tell you what, though. I think, if anything, Austin Cindric, despite all the, silver spoon comments and, oh, your dad and nepotism and all this other stuff.
he's come a long way.
Yeah, I think he's really proved his worth in the Xfinity Series. And I think he's proved that he's earned that number 2 car that's going to be his next year. Richard, what do you think about this young man, Austin Cindric?
Oh, I think there's certainly talent there. And I think you're going to see the same thing with the young
Ty Gibbs.
Ty Gibbs.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. This whole sort of, and Mick Schumacher and guys like that. I'm sure it helps open a lot of doors. Don't get me wrong, but also,
well, real quick on Ty Gibbs, who brought up a good point. Xfinity side, Josh Berry is going to be full-time Xfinity for JR Motorsports in 2022. That's a talent that basically did it the absolute hard way. He's had tremendous runs. He's going to run the Michael Annette's car again. So more seating time for Berry, a great opportunity. He could be a championship 4 favorite next season. Of course, I say championship 4 because some people will think Ty Gibbs is going to run away with the championship, even though I still stand as Sam Mayer is the more complete driver out of the two. But whenever Richards comes back to say his response, I just needed to point that out real quick, Xfinity news, and kind of keep an eye on talent as well.
Absolutely. So Xfinity is going to be running at Michigan with the Cup guys, correct?
That is correct. Truck Series are at Gateway.
The Truck Series are going to run with the IndyCars at Gateway.
Yep. They're all Friday, IndyCars all Saturday. Depending on weather, of course, because the weather is not looking too great right now.
All right. So do we want to try to pick a winner for Gateway?
Let's see. IndyCar.
IndyCar, yeah, because I couldn't even tell you who runs in the Truck Series. My bad.
Truck Series, John Hunter Nemechek, just to toss it out there. And IndyCar, I'm going to go with Pato in this one. I think he gets it done. I think based on what we saw a year ago, how good he was right away at that circuit, I think is going to bode well, even if it's a night race.
Okay. And Richard, can you hear us now or? Okay, I think we still don't have Richard.
Hello? Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So, Richard, who do you like for a winner at the IndyCar race at Gateway?
Yeah. Let's have a think. Let's go with. I think it's about time for Scott Dixon to turn up, isn't it? Let's go with Dixon.
Oh yeah, that's a good pick. Yeah, and Dixon can certainly just pull him out of thin air. I'm gonna go with Newgarden, who knows his way around oval tracks pretty well, and he's trying to get his nose into that championship battle. He's 4th place right now, not too far out of the lead. So I'm going to go with Newgarden. And now we have also Le Mans coming up this weekend. So Richard, we've got a brand new car, the hypercar, coming to Le Mans.
Yeah, so Le Mans has been in this sort of strange situation for the last few years where, they've always been dominated by Porsche and Toyota, and they're looking to try and sort of change that and bring new regulations in and new cars in and try and create a sort of attractive LMP1 class, basically. And, these machines are phenomenal. They really are. I mean, they're second to a Formula One car in terms of technology, and then
Nope. Sounds like we lost Richard again. I do apologize to you folks, but we are actually out of time. So this weekend we've got Le Mans, we've got IndyCars and Trucks at Gateway, we've got NASCAR and Xfinity at Michigan, and I want to thank the Hoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Spreaker, and I want to thank you, Louise and Richard. Sorry about your audio problem, but most of all, I want to thank you folks who listen to us week in and week out. But until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Subaru.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.